Welcome everybody. Always interesting to do the after lunch presentation. I'm tired.
Food co-host.
Yes. But we'll keep it interesting. Have a fun Chuck Norris API that hopefully will behave today. If any of you were in DC and saw that mess, well, it could be exciting. Again, just real quick, I'm pretty sure everybody was here for the first one, but yes, I'm a proud father of 3, but in the Rugrats, I've been coding since 1999, fighting with my computer since then. Freelance since 2001, the owner of Fuse Developments, do all my consulting. CrossTracker is a SaaS that I do with Cold Fusion, and I play a lot with WebSockets and kind of fell in love with them. Senior developer of Fuse Development, Duty Free Americas, and I'm also the software Cold Fusion user. So, let's start this off by playing a game. So if anybody can open up their browser and go to that website, game.fusedev.com, and click on play game. I'm going to start a game. I'm just going to call myself JC, and the game is going to be CF-2019. So I'll just wait for somebody to join, and hopefully the demo gods will be ready. Yes, maybe that bigger. All right, so this is a game of Simon Says, and it's content. And I forgot what color it is, so if it fails, we'll try again. Yeah, I did fail. My opponent, can you please click restart game? Nate, thank you. All right, there we go. Now it's red. All right. So my opponent it's their turn, the red one first, and red and blue. And I don't have sound here, and if you're next to my opponent, you need to go again. So what you do is 2 of them. So he did red, green, and of course I do red, green. He's seeing that on the side, and I'll do yellow. He'll have noise, he'll have sound. Then he'll do his turns, and if he messes up, I'll mess up here. One more, Nate. Right. And then now I'll just do blue, and what he hears on his side, if he has his volume up, is some little funny sound. Tells him it's over, and he can either restart the game, or I can leave, and in his phone should tell him right now that I've left the game. Is that correct, Nate?
My session is now ended.
Sorry?
My session has ended.
Yes, because I left the game. That's right. So this is a little game I wrote like in a day. It's basically Simon Says, and just sending the information back and forth. As I was pressing on the view, he's seeing it on his. I think it took me more time to do that horrible UI because I wasn't happy with how Simon Says things than it was to actually code the whole thing. So now we see how a little game can be done. Oh, sorry. Let's play with some code. So this presentation is a lot of live coding. So we're going to proceed at our own risk. And hopefully the presentation gods will not fail me. We talked a lot about how you know. And let me go to the X. So we talked a lot about how to set up our WebSockets in our application. And this here is actually not an application running WebSockets because you'll notice that the dis.ws channel is not here. But this is this code here. And for those that have asked if this would run on command box, and I've seen sometimes people say, does WebSockets work on command box? If you're running the Adobe engine, yes it will. Box server start. Because we're going to use the internal WebSocket server. So we'll let that start. And all this code is available on my GitHub. I've made some changes today I'll discuss, and I'll try to update them tonight. But I'll post all this stuff. I'll make I'll do a little tweet about it and kind of point everybody to my PDFs and my code. So you'll get this right here. And this right here lets you go through a couple of different examples. So first, before we dive into one of these examples, I want to show you the console app. I know it says console, but this right here. So this console app actually started as some test code that the Adobe team created. And I basically took it, gave it a new skin and added new things to it. So you can actually drop this into any of your applications and debug your WebSockets with a nice UI. I mean, you can really do it on the web developer tools as well, but this gives you a nice UI. So this will look at your channels that you have available. And for instance, in my application here, I only have demo. I'm going to go ahead and open up another one, because each browser window is actually a new connection. So I'm going to subscribe to demo on this side. And I'm going to go ahead and subscribe to demo on this side as well. If everything is too small, please advise, so then I can make it bigger. So now we have both of these users subscribe to a demo channel. And if this user just wants to say hello, send a message. It goes through and you can see that I've sent a message. I've gotten a publish response of okay, so it's okay for me to publish. And then the other user got that message in real time. And if we jump into code real quick, this is our live demo, is demo 1, because I have that console app, I just dropped it right in there. It's looking at my application, and it's looking at my WS channels. And basically I'm putting all the channels that are available to me. So that creates this drop down here. And then I'm just doing all my calls, right? Everything is available to me, all my subscriber calls, which is like subscribe, authenticate. If it's part of your application, you can use it with that console app. So before we get into any deeper into that, I want to show you the new things I added here. So in my last presentation, I showed how we can set a custom header when you subscribe, and you can also set custom headers when you publish a message. So I'm going to unsubscribe real quick. And this little piece right here is new. So I'm going to have a custom header here of device equals mobile. I'm going to subscribe to that. And this guy here is going to be device equals desktop. Subscribe. Perfect. So if I look at my subscribers right now, you'll notice that I have one guy that subscribed, and this device is set to mobile. The other guy is device set to desktop. And again, this is with nothing built. You saw that this application CFC really has nothing. There's no CFC listeners, nothing. It's just this, nothing more. And one of the cool things that's built into this, into CodeFusion's version is WebSocket, is the fact that you can send a custom header also when you publish called selector. And that selector, it lets you do anything that you want to kind of query or check against that subscriber info. Any of those keys you can actually check against. So this one will say device equals desktop. I'm going to send a message, hello desktop. And when I publish that, you'll notice that the user on the right who has the device set to desktop in their subscription got that message. I didn't get that message. I just got the response that it was okay for me to publish. But because I was mobile, I didn't get it. So these are cool little things that you can do, right? So without any extra coding, without any extra, server-side logic, you can basically, subscribe and you can basically publish certain messages to particular users depending on the keys that are part of their user information. And you can add as many as you want here and delete. And this will let you, debug your WebSockets. Right here, I also allow you to, this I don't inspect your website, so you go into this file and kind of add all your CSCs, but this shows you what invoke and publish works like. So I have this function called publish in this component, services communicate, and when I invoke this, within 5 seconds I'm going to get a response because I put a sleep timer on it. So when I invoke and publish, I'm going to invoke and publish first, to the demo channel. When I do that, and it's going to go on right now, so it's about 5 seconds, you can see that both of the clients got that response. Right, that's using invoke and publish. So you can still specify a channel, it publishes to a channel, it does some work, and then it sends the information back to the channel. The other one where we talked about point-to-point is using that invoke function. In that one, we use a function called P2P. I'm going to go ahead and hit invoke. And what you'll notice here, I'm going to get 10 responses. So I just sent this call to a server that said connection is still open, but it's not like I'm waiting for anything, and then the server is responding just back to me because I did that invoke call, right? So nobody else gets that message. Now you can make the mistake of doing invoke and publish, and really all that happens there, because I'm using this one function called WSSendMessage, is that when I do invoke and publish on that, you'll notice that both of them got that first initial response, which is, this is the value returned from P2P, right? And I'll show you why they got that. But then the rest of the messages come back only to me because I specifically invoked that call. When you look at that CFC, you'll see when I did the publish call, I did where I slept for 3 seconds and then I sent that information back. The P2P uses WSMessage, which means those messages only return back to the person that invoked the call, nobody else. But when I did invoke and publish, you'll notice that we did get a response, and that's because I did it invoke and publish in a channel, and everybody who subscribed at least got that return, but they did not get this because this is specifically just for the user that initiated that call. So that's how those calls work on the server and on the user. Now again, you have this available, but we can open up our web developer tools. And we can use our console and our network. So I'm just going to go and subscribe. I'm going to refresh this guy. And you'll notice that once we do this, and this is where you always want to check if you're like, your WebSockets are working. Now you should be able to see a call to CFusion. And in here you'll see your URL. It's been upgraded. You'll see one over. You'll want to make that bigger, sorry. Let me make this, there we go. So you'll notice that we have that call under WS. This is also visible in Firefox and in Safari, but I kind of like how Chrome shows it. It's really easy to understand and kind of like look at all your messages. Before they used to be called frames, now they show us messages. So here's the call, here's our header. It's switched protocols because it does that upgrade. Remember I said it starts always as an HTTP call, and then it upgrades to a WebSocket connection, which is a persistent connection. And at that point, all your messages are going through here. So, and some of them, they're frames, but here now they call them messages. And you can see that every time that I send a message, here's my response. So, sorry. When I discussed all the server response headers, remember we talked about the client ID. Here's me being welcomed, right? That's my client ID. I got a message of okay. The request type was welcome, and it was a response of okay. And this is the namespace for it, which is always going to be ColdFusion WebSocket channels. And here's an authorization key. Now you're going to see I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to subscribe to demo. And go right here, subscribe. And here I make that call to subscribe. And here I got my response, which says it's okay and I am subscribed. And when a user does a message, again like, hello, there's that message that just came. It was published. Channel name came through demo. Publisher ID was 94, et cetera, et cetera. That's his publisher ID, and the type was data because we're looking for that response in the data object, right? So that's how you're getting those values. This in this example, I think I called it CFWS. No, I did not. Let's see what I called it. We'll look at the code real quick. I called it my WS object. There we go. Here are all those functions that we have. You can see it inspected, right? So we can say my WS is connected. You should get a true, and then we'll go ahead and close the socket. Stop the socket. Yes. It's connected. We are now not connected. We'll go ahead and open that connection. It's connected to is true, and we'll go ahead and subscribe. And now that I subscribe, I can say my object, publish the channel, and send that, and we see that came over here. We see the response over here, and if I want to go ahead and say only people who are selector, device equals desktop. And I send that, you'll see that this guy didn't get it because remember when we signed up this guy on this side, his key is mobile. Again, it's built right into it baked right in, real easy. You can debug in your console, you can debug using this app. There's a lot of ways to really work with them and kind of like see the strength and power of working with WebSockets. And something I didn't mention before, sometimes WebSockets are being used in places that we don't even know. For instance, anybody have a Ubiquiti router? Anybody here know about Ubiquiti routers? Like the Edge router, XM? So they're basically routers and switches and all that, and some of them are unified, which means like it's this whole interface that that they're all together, that you can manage all your switches and routers and endpoints through here. But when that connects, that connection that's passing the configuration back and forth is a secure WebSocket connection. So they basically use that because you can have this admin up anywhere in the web because they host it, or you can self-host it and then just connect all your devices, and all those configurations are going back and forth. So if you make a change in one of their pro routers, which has their own interface, it will push it back to that system. Or if you're in the unified ones, they don't have an interface, it's just that one global interface, and all that's passing over their WebSockets. All right, so that is our first demo of how that works. And a disclaimer, I have not walked through this presentation. There's no roads here. Okay, this might be real quick. We might go to 45 minutes. So hopefully, if you have any questions, feel free to interrupt me.
So I got one question.
Yes.
So what you just demonstrated, if we have 100 people connected, all 100 are going to get the same message.
Yes, sir.
So we have to be careful that we're not exposing data accidentally, right?
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So there's security stuff there.
There is, and there is business logic that you can take, that you can actually run, and that's where the channel listener comes into play. So right now we have no channel listener, right? This is just open, but you would do this if it's just if you're just passing in if you're just passing instructions. And people do need to know your channels, right? They need to know the channel names and so on.
How open are these channel names? Like, I don't know anything, but I know how to access the panel with Chrome.
Well, I guess this gives me a good opportunity to go into this. I was going to kind of wait. So when you look at the WebSocket API, right, it's actually very simple, right? You create a socket, you do that call, and then you add event listeners, right? And it has on open, on close. And this is really like what a WebSocket server is. That's it. Once the connection's open, and you can talk back and forth. But what the Adobe team did with the channels and all that, that's something that's more baked into it, that you can actually have different channels and kind of subscribe to channels and sub-channels and so on. That, if you try to connect to CodeFusion with this code, it will never work. Because when you're sending this message, there's actually like a different packet that you have to send in, which is an object that they stringify. And you can see an example of that in my HTML to CodeFusion. We'll go to that, but I'll just jump into it. There's a tag called CF WebSocket, right? It's just a JavaScript function. So this is if you don't want to use any of their JavaScript, you just want to use this. Like for instance, you want to run this off an HTML site, which we're going to do that demo. When you do a subscribe call, it basically looks like this, right? So you're actually passing everything inside this object. So you're passing the namespace, what type it is, the channel, the app name that you get from your application, the custom options like the selector and all that. So you actually have to send that in the call. So if you don't package it that way, it won't work. So it can be a little confusing when you see this and you go, wow, that's so easy, but you actually need to do these other steps. And that's why using the CF WebSocket tag makes it easy, because they have all that kind of baked into it. So when it comes to how secure they are, again, our implementation is very, very, very simple. Now let's take the regular old chat demo, right? So we're going to do our chat app. And on this side, we're going to do one on this side and one on that side. So on this side, I'm going to go ahead and log in as JC, and on this side, it's Maria. Now, you notice that as soon as somebody joined the system, it told me, hey, Maria has joined the system on this side, right? Oops. And on the other side, It says, welcome to the chat room, Maria. And basically, welcome, Maria. So these are all happening because of the CFC listeners. And you'll see that my right-hand side is showing me the users. Now, let's say Maria would leave, right? She can either leave the room or close this. Once she leaves, you'll notice that the side right here, she's now gone and it's told me that she has left the room. So how does all this work? This is how we're gonna go deep into how just this particular example worked. So let me go ahead and open up the chat application. So we'll start with our channels. Channel, I named it really easy, it's called chat. And if you wanted to do different rooms, you can just build off this, right? You can use the same CFC listener, right? So then now I can create a new room and chat.room number 1, chat.room 2, or chat.room.loves cats. And you can just basically just keep going from there. I mean, you literally can do anything. You don't need to define those here. All you need to define here is just that parent channel. Then the on WS Authenticate, right? This has to live in your application CFC. This is what receives a call from the Authenticate client side function that you get from that JavaScript object. So if you were doing the CF WebSocket tag like we talked before, and you did the subscribe to attribute and you put in all the channels you would subscribe to, you're not going to take advantage of this. That's not the way you want to subscribe. What you want to do is just use the CF WebSocket to create that connection, and then use the subscribe client function on JavaScript to do the, before you do the subscribe, then you actually have to do the authenticate and then the subscribe. So authenticate will come in here, it'll grab a username, it'll grab a password, and can receive connection info. And you can see that mine is very easy authentication, right? I'm just looking at an array. If you're just in this array, you can come in. If not, you can't. And to demo that, I'll try to log in this Bill. But he has a potty mouth, so we're going to let him log in. Once I see that my user can authenticate, and you can pass in the password, you just return a Boolean. So you can, it's just a true or false, and then from there you can keep going. And now we look at our chat listener. So our chat listener is now looking at different functions, right? So what I'm going to do here to explain this first one is I'm going to go to the console. Right? Video I have it here. I'm going to be able to test this. Right? So I'm going to go ahead and try to join the chat. And I have the user, let's say JC. Right? So to do, I don't know why I did that. All right, so now I'm trying to subscribe to chat, and I'm getting this error back. Username required when attempting to connect to chat room. You can see that my username is gone here. So when it's coming in here, I'm getting my subscriber info. And what I'm looking for here is, first I'm looking at the subscriber is authenticated. And that's returned from that authenticate call. That kind of becomes part of the object. That'll always be passed in once you authenticate. There's really nothing more you need to do, just kind of validate that. After that, I'm seeing if a key of username exists. If not, I return false. And if it's false, then it's going to say, hey, you can't, it's missing the information. But if it does work, we're going to publish it. We're going to let everybody know that's part of the chat room that our user has joined the chat room and say hello. And then I'm going to throw this into a thread, right? This one's going to do return connected user. So what I did here is this call all the way down here, goes ahead and gets all my subscribers, and then builds that UL, that unordered list, and then it publishes that to all my subscribers. Now in all of these, you'll see that this is happening like after unsubscribe and at allow subscribe. Because what that's doing, that's updating my left column of my users when they're coming in and when they're coming in and when they leave. And allow publish, here again you can do some business logic. You can look at the connection info or the publisher info, maybe make some logic here, or maybe why this user can't publish in this room. Maybe let's say if you're tracking somebody talking saying bad words or being abusive or something, and maybe you have a threshold of 5 occurrences. Here you can probably inspect that, build that business logic and say, you've been rude, you can't publish anymore. So that's where you would do that in allow publish. That's somebody trying to publish, fires off once, and then if it allows them, their message will go through. If not, it'll come back. Before publish, right here is, we're basically, I'm just doing here, I was, for this example, I was kind of looking at the published messages and I was keeping them because I'm using another view to show how many messages have been published. But here is where you can grab the message and do any business logic against it, translate it, whatever it is. You may look at the message, if there's bad words, you might replace it. This fires off once, right? So this fires off once when the person sends the message and it says they can publish, they'll put their message in here, you can run all your business logic. Then, before send message, this is the one that happens for every user. This happens afterwards. It is will grab the message, and if the message is, this is where you can, customize the message per connected user, right? So it's specifically for them. So if we go back to the example, what's happening here? And I'm reviewing that. You'll notice that when I send that message on mine, they're blue, hers are gray. Kind of like how it's building it is coming back, in that call for the user. It's how they're going to receive that message and then display on the screen. So I'm doing that work on the server side, right? It's how I'm building my message, right? Whether it's me or not, and I'm looking at my subscriber info, my client ID, and I'm seeing if the subscriber info is the same as the client ID of the message, and then I'm saying, there I'm putting the sender, and I'm just basically building my whole message, and then I pass it back down. There's also other things that can happen here, like if, for some instance, I send a message that says force reconnect, which is part of the advanced socket, it'll go ahead and know what to do and respond to the users. So we did take care of that. And then after unsubscribe, as you can see, it's just after that user unsubscribes, it's going to go ahead and tell everybody that person has left the room, and then return the connected users, which we saw here that if Maria leaves, Maria has left the room, and then this has been updated. And you can see all that data kind of coming back again in real time. We'll see it here. Perfect. I can say hello. We'll see that message came back to me. Alright, so here's where that data for the left-hand side came for me. Right, so that has inside the data has an HTML that's gonna replace this here, and then here's the message that came back, and the sender is JC. It kind of built all that and then sent it back to the user. So all that's it's happening in the server, You'll notice that here, sender's Maria. Right, so I'm doing all that on the server side. It's building that HTML and then sending it out, and then everybody's rendering it to screen. So that's one way to kind of use those functions. But you can see where here you can build that business logic to make sure that, important information is not going out, or that your WebSocket connection is secure, and whatever other business logic you need to do. That takes care of that. Does anybody have any questions about that? No questions? Okay, we'll move on.
Well, actually,
Yes.
compared to doing this with Ajax, which I know too, but is this a lot more overhead on the server?
No, it's a lot less overhead on the server.
Okay.
Right? Because if you think about it, let's say you were doing this with Ajax, right? So now I send a message. Now you and every other subscriber has to check if there's a message, right? And for each call, it's going to check that, and then it's going to go ahead and rebuild that menu each time. Or here, it does it once and then just publishes out. So that is that example. And well, you know what? Let's go into the looking at that page. Oh, wrong one. Here's our index page. You can see it's really. We'll talk about this in a little while. Here's just my UI, my top bar. my bottom bar, my message form. It's just basic, just setting up the UI. Then all my little libraries that I use, and then the chat, and the chat script. And inside the chat script, which is in there, since it's where it's doing all that work, right? It's doing all that work to receive the message and then go ahead and update it, or like submitting the form. I mean, I'm not going to go too crazy into this, but I'm just going to kind of show you real quick. But you can see here, like when that login form submits, we're passing the value of that username value. And I'm not using password, so I'm not passing anything here. And then if the user authenticates, you get a success on the advanced socket connected function that I define. Or if I'm failed, you're going to get it here. And you can just basically see how it is here. When you submit a message, it's going to go ahead and pass it to the publish. So again, the channel that you're in, and then the value. And this is more using the advanced socket library that I wrote, which we'll go into, because that adds a little bit of extra stuff to your application. So looking at my advanced socket connected, which is a function that I basically just created here. It's looking when it's connected. It's doing all my work for me. Welcome to the chat room. It has my username here. That's coming back, and it's just updating all these values, closing out the form. And then, again, if you have an error, when I get that error, and I know that request type was authenticate, and the object code was -1, then we know that it was an invalid user. Please try again. So this is how to work with those callbacks. So next up is talking about advanced sockets. So there's these functions to the JavaScript object, like is connected or is connection open, that on one build it works, and then on the next update it fails, and then on the next update it works. So there's some times where I had issues where people would be like, your application seems broken. Somebody's like logging in, but the dashboard is not updating. And there's so many different variables in between that, right? It could be network connection. Sometimes these pockets we use as our neighbor's Wi-Fi, so the connection's spotty. The service provider goes down, or our server goes down. And not necessarily because the server went down because it failed, but we're all running on frameworks, and in the middle of the day we found a bug and we need to re-init it, and we need to re-init the application, and when you do that, all your WebSocket connections are killed, right? And there was no easy way for connections to reconnect themselves. So a dashboard could look like it's working, somebody's doing something and nothing's updating, and well, your application looks broken. And that's where advanced socket comes in. Advanced socket basically does all these little callbacks for you and all these little checks that you can define. So an example of that is I'm going to go ahead and open up this console, and I'm going to go, not that one. Go back. So here's my simple console, and here's my advanced console. So side by side. Sorry guys. Let's just do it this way. That's not the one. Thank you. There we go. Alright, so we have this, and I'm going to go ahead and send a message. Say hello. Send a message. Okay, so you see that both of them are receiving the messages, right? So what we're going to do is we are going to go ahead and stop that server because it just crashed. And what we'll notice is when that happens, and don't look at it anymore with me. Let's just say that it is connected. There we go. So I have the check a little bit slower. So you can see that now this right side said it was disconnected, and the left and the right side said it's connected. But if I go ahead and restart my server, we'll notice that we're connected again. And we can send messages and receive messages. So we can go ahead and receive messages. We see everybody's getting the messages. And for instance, if I go here and I do a broadcast, we'll see that there's that checkpointers API. It behaved this time. We'll see that that guy got the update, but this guy didn't. This guy still left that hello. And that there's no way to know, right? Right now, if anybody was looking at this and this was a dashboard, there's no way to know that this was connected or not. And I believe in this version it is updated, but let's see. Let's check it. It might be working. Yeah, it returns a false, but it normally returns a true. So if you're using that, it wouldn't work. Again, this is just in the last update that they kind of fixed that. So what you would need to do is come here and refresh this, and then now you get messages again, right? There we go. We'll do another broadcast. And there we go. There we go. Broadcast came back from that API. We could then fetch a funding port. Okay, so it's fine. So that API is down. But you'll still notice that both sides got this, right? And this is using advanced socket. An advanced socket, the way you add that to your file or your app is like follows. So we have our advanced and our index. So looking at these two files. This is our simple one. Again, this is just our console. We have our CFO socket, and that's pretty much it. On this side, again, the same thing, except now we just have this advanced socket.js that we added, this advanced JS file that I have that basically goes ahead and builds off scripts. So I kind of did everything in little pieces so you can kind of compare. It's not like both of them. Like you'll notice this one is actually working off that file, and this just keeps adding on. Then I have my WebSocket connection still WS, but on my onMessage, I have it set to advanced socket on message, advanced socket on open, advanced socket on close, and that's all coded in here. And then I have these little data attributes that you do to the body. So my data channels, here you can pass a comment delimited list, and it will subscribe to all these channels, and it will check for all these channels. Then you can do data debug true, so you can see everything that's happening. What do you want to do when you get a message? So here we want to pass it to that global parse message. We have an online timer, which means while I am online, I want you to check every 10 seconds. So right now, you still have to ping, right? You still have to ping to check. And actually, I might update that because you do get a false if you try to publish. I'm going to kind of update this to allow to completely avoid using Ajax at all and kind of just use your WebSocket connection. Because if you do try to publish and the server's down, you'll get a false response. But right now we're working with an Ajax request. So yes, I know I talked about Ajax requests having overhead and all that, but if you're asking all the time, hey, is something going on, is something happening, you're doing all that logic, but this is just a simple ping to make sure CFM is up. This calls not that much, right? It can be really, really, really light. So while I'm online, I want you to check every 10 seconds. But once I go offline, my timer is every 2 seconds. Or if a reconnect call is something that I built into it that if you pass like a message that says force reconnect, this is something that you would do on an application re-init. So when that message is broadcasted to everybody, you just told everybody, hey, I'm about to reload the application server. I'm about to re-init my application. And well, my application server takes 5 seconds before any good connections will actually work. So you don't want to pound your server. You'll say, okay, when I get that force reconnect, I want to wait 5 seconds before I send a call to check if the server's up. So this is how you can kind of delay that initial call once you get that force reconnect. And then that ping URL, right? That ping URL, this one is just ping, and this one is basically looking at a file, and it's passing my subscriber ID, and it's looking at all the subscribers for the server. And if I'm found, then my connection is still good. But if I'm not there, that means that I need to rebuild my connection. So again, if the server goes completely down, if you re-init the app, it'll automatically look at all your channels and re-init a connection. So it'll look like it never fell, like it never went off. And all that I have it documented on my GitHub. So with doing these things, that's what allows you to have your WebSocket connections continue to stay up and remain up between, again, any type of instance, whether your server goes down, whether you reading the application. And this also takes advantage of Navigator Online. I think that's what it is, right? It's been a while since I've worked on it. But the browser itself, if you go offline, like your Wi-Fi goes off, or you unplug, at that point it knows that it's not working and there's no need to do an HTTP call. So once the browser knows that that's happened, it's basically going to tell you, hey, you're offline, you're no longer working, and it's not going to do any calls, it's not going to look at any of this, and it's not going to try to ping until that connection comes back up. Once that connection comes back up, either you plug in a Ethernet cable or you get a Wi-Fi connection again. At that point, I'll say, okay, now I have network connection again. Now let me see if I can connect to the server. And then it'll let you kind of show. And all those callbacks to kind of like show how you want to show whether you're connected, and you're really open to do whatever you want. So that one, our chat. Assets. Sorry, it's always weird how it is here. Okay, there we go. And again, here it goes. So this is how easy it is, right? So in disconnected, I want you to get out of them by ID. So when I'm disconnected, I just want you to just show disconnected. When I'm connected, I want you to show me that I'm connected. And if I'm connecting, it's going to show this. So that's really it. That's really all the work that's taken there. And it's looking at all those callbacks, and when those things happen, go ahead and do these functions. So it's not a lot to go through, and if you have any questions while you're going through this, always feel free to contact me. I'll respond right away, as fast as I can, which is sometimes right away.
Is there any configuration for sending out a message and getting an acknowledgement back that it was received?
No, not that. No, that's. I mean, you could code that. Like if you want to like do some analytical code on like how many people are actually receiving this, you would receive the message and then in your JavaScript you would say, hey, once I receive this, ping the server back and let them know that I received it.
Right.
So the server doesn't get a callback once it sends it out, it's just sending them out. And
I'm just thinking of Facebook Messenger, as you type something and send it, you can see that the person read or received.
Right. And again, that's probably happening on that side, right? So like, to show those little dots, right? You can actually, while the person's keying in, you can then publish a message saying, hey, the person's keying in. Then once that message comes, and then you receive that message, you do the callback to sort of say, after a while, if the person actually read it, then it's like, okay, hey, this person read the message, let the person know. You're kind of tracking that outside of all this. So at that point, you're going to be tracking your messages into a database and all that. You can have different flags. So that's the way I would see doing that. So again, one of the examples I had after that is how to make this work if you didn't want to use all the code from the come on, what's going on here? There you go. If you didn't want to work with all the Cold Fusion JavaScript, JavaScript that they give you, if you kind of have one less of an overhead and you were happy enough with just working with what's available here, or building upon that, or kind of looking at the code and kind of trying to reverse engineer it. You can use this right here, which is HTML to Cold Fusion, and this one is same as this one here. So let's see. CF. Yeah, there we go. Hello from CF, and then this one is. HTML. So that you'll see that I got that message back. And the difference with that one here, when you look at that file, you'll notice that there is just, I know it may be hard to see, there's just an index HTML here. So it's not a JavaScript. It's not a Cold Fusion file, right? There's no CF WebSocket here. Just to keep the name the same, I call it CF WebSocket.js, right? And what that does is this code right here. So this code right here is where you kind of set it up. You set up your, let me close all this out. Right, Jesus, why does it keep on? There we go. You set up your CF WebSocket, you pass the app name, channel, the start path, I'll explain what that is, on message, on subscribe. If this is proxy, your WS port, your server, whether to use secure or not, and any custom options, which is like the selector and all, and everything like that. And then I basically just go through it and I build it for you. And it's also allowed me to kind of make it work with Angular and everything, which I'll show you an example of that. And then this is the script for it. So here it is, right? UFCF WebSocket. This is WebSocket Demo 1 is the app name. My channel is the demo. Again, remember here is my app name. Let me look at that. Demo 1. So we know what we're referring to. WebSockets Demo 1, so you need that. You need that value. We have our app start path. So we have this run me. So it's under live demos 1, run me CFM. And this is just a CFM file that does true. The reason why you need this in this call is if you're working with Angular or just an HTML application, you don't want any code fusion in there, right? If you make the call and no CFM has executed, well, the WebSocket server is not up. Right? So if you bring up the server, you can either use on server start on your CF admin, or you can have this in there. What that'll do is that'll fire off any CFM you want. And that will execute application COC and then say, okay, I need to bring up a WebSocket server, set up everything. And then once you're ready to be like, okay, now you can work with it. So that's why that's needed. And then everything else works the same, right? All your functions are still the same. WS publish, I kind of made them all the same. You know, unsubscribe, subscribe, publish, it's basically on message. Everything is there that you can work with just like the regular CF WebSocket tag. And to take that demo a little further, we're going to go, let's see. Oh, like that. Yeah, that's right. That's right. Okay. So I'm starting up with an Angular app. Cool. Awesome. And just because of playing with this, I was able to do this, right? So let's say hello from Angular. Send that message. And you guys saw it in the background, right? Everybody got that message? Hello from Angular. Let's take it one step further. This is native iOS app. Yeah, we got that down here. There we go. From iOS. There you go. So you notice you can actually even use the Cold Fusion WebSocket server if you wanted to inside iOS. And I'm pretty sure inside Android and all that. All you need is the right library. And then looking at the HTML to Cold Fusion CF WebSocket tag, you can kind of see how you have to build, the call and just kind of go from there. So what happens if you are not on Cold Fusion, or you can't, or what happens if you're not on Cold Fusion 11 or higher, or you just don't want to use the Cold Fusion server, right? You have other options. You have stuff like Socket.io. There's also Faye, which is another WebSocket server on Node. I haven't tried that one. The only one I've ever played with is with Socket.io. I love it. It's real simple. I've also used services like Pusher. And then I realized that I was paying somebody a lot of money to send messages when I could just run it myself. So I stopped paying them and went to Socket.io. And then eventually Cold Fusion once they enabled the SSL and everything on Cold Fusion 11. So the way you would do that is you would run this Socket.io server. We're going to go into Socket.io, and this is Node, and I'm using Express. And my server here is basically, if you've worked with Node, you kind of know what this is. You're bringing in all the libraries that you need, and I'm going to run a Socket.io, an Express server. Inside first this is the simple WebSocket server, right? It's IOing on connection. It's going to go through here and do all its work. We're going to join each channel that you pass. It's going to do the handshake, and then when you send a message, it's going to console log it for me so I can see it, but it's also going to broadcast or emit the message, right? And then, because I want Cold Fusion or any other language that I'm working with, or just JavaScript itself, to be able to publish to this WebSocket server, I'm going to do a REST API endpoint for publish. And this is going to take a message, and it's going to publish it to everybody. So the way that looks like, go ahead and come here. Here. The demo files. So, okay. So first we're going to bring up the box server start. This is going to be the Cold Fusion server. And that's how it comes up. Perfect. And I'm going to go. Yes, I know. The socket IO server is not up. Hold on. Let's see. All right, there we go. Now it's up. Boom! There we are. We're connected. Sorry. All right, so there's my node server. It's connected. This code here. Come back here to my other demos. You'll see my application has no WebSockets. Here's my index HTML. I could have been a CFM as well, but I'm using the Socket.io client.js that's all built for me, right? It does everything for me. And then I'm just broadcasting your information back and forth. There we go. So now, let's say I need to broadcast a message. So from the server, broadcast. Nope. Broadcast.cfm. No, there we go. All right, so there we go. So what I did here is I did a call to that broadcast CFM, made a call to that Chuck Norris API, right? And then sent that to the Socket.io server, and I was able to receive that call here. That's one way to do it, or, and if you look at that code, right, it's coming in, my CFM is coming in here, and I'm actually seeing if there's anything in the URL. If not, I'm going to go ahead and call that API. And then I'm going to do an HTTP request to that Socket.io server and I'm going to publish. So instead of doing WS publish, this is what you would do from your Cold Fusion server, right? You just do an HTTP request to that Socket.io server, and now you can use WebSockets in your application. That's extreme. That has nothing to do with the internal internal WebSocket server. If I do another one, and then just here I can say message equals hello. You'll notice that message just kind of went right through. Does anybody have any questions about anything at this moment, or everybody kind of understand, or any questions? Good. Yes.
I just had a question about, so your WebSocket connection doesn't share the regular session scope with the web portion of it.
Yes. No. It doesn't.
So do you ever have a situation where you need to match up your WebSocket connection with a specific user session on the actual web server side, and how would you go about that securely?
I've never had that need, especially for how I use WebSockets. But if you were needing to do that, you'd probably do something with, well, number one, I think you would move away from sessions, right? Or try to do some type of centralized kind of session management, where then you can probably manage keys, and then you can pass that into authenticate call.
Yeah, okay. That's what I was figuring, it's something that
and then
pass into the authentication.
Yeah, and then use a channel listener, right, to do all that business logic. So I mean, in reality, it's like anything can be done, right? It's just what do you want to do. Some tips and tricks is always keep it light. I like to keep it light. You know what I mean? Yes, you can send binary information. Yes, you can send images, but why do that, right? Let's say you have 1 million users connected. Why send that image out, 1,000 times, 1 million times? Maybe those users have uploaded that image before. Maybe instead send an image that says, "Go get this image." And if they got that image before, they can use their HTTP cache, and and then save on that call, and keep your call small, keep those channels tiny. You know, if you're doing some type of stocks chat, board or whatever, and you want to update everything, don't send the whole record set. Send the deltas, and then just do the JavaScript on the other side. Yes, I know it's a lot more work, and some of us want to be lazy, but if you want to keep it fast, if you want it to be responsive, you want to keep those channels really small. Always keep those packets as small as possible. And that's the way I tend to use it. And when you think of a game where you're setting, coordinates, they're very small, X, Y, and you do all the work on the client side.
So as we're architecting our software, what kind of things do we look for to say, oh, I should be using the WebSocket? I mean, is there what's going to trigger me to say that I should switch to this?
I think it's really preference. You know what I mean? For me, when I'm building something that I want it to be in real time, and I keep going back to that word, but that's really what it is, right? When I wanted to get that update without me having to request for it, that's when I'll use a WebSocket. That really is all that comes down to it. And a game requires that, right? A game, you don't want that extra latency, right? You want to know as soon as possible. And the dashboard is a give and take, right? If you don't mind it being a little bit off, okay. But if you have thousands of dashboards up, do you really want all those, hey, is there an update for me going? Or do you just want them to have a very nice light connection over the phone, and the server knows that it needs to go out and just sends one call to everybody? Any other questions? And I know I never went back to the keynote, so let's see. As you can see, I didn't really do a run through this, so we kind of sort through it. But yeah, here, real world issues, we went to this, right? And why we need advanced socket. And it easily integrates, calls back connections. We all kind of saw this in action. It's available on my GitHub repo. Nope, we already did those demos. What if I use CodeFusion as a REST API only, right? You can use Angular. This was that Angular example. So if you use CodeFusion only as a REST API, but you still want to use a WebSocket server, right? You can make those WebSocket connections, but remember that you always need to execute CFM first, right? So you're either going to do that on a server start, or you're going to have that app start path for me that says it's going to go ahead and make that call to that CFM file, just get the wheel spinning, so that the WebSocket server doesn't fail. And again, if my CFM engine does not support WebSockets, or I just don't want to use it, right? You can use Socket.io. You can even write it in .NET. If you're already running on IIS, you have that layer available to you. It's not that difficult to code. Actually, when you proxy, that's what it's going through. And whatever Apache has as well, you can even code it in that. Third-party services, push or pub no, if you want to pay. There's really no final demo. Here are all the repos. Again, don't worry. All this is going to be available. And if you just go to my GitHub, you get there and just look at everything that says CodeFusion first. And again, it's my name. Real easy to find. Oops, sorry, go back. And there's other stuff here, right? Like that I did a demo. It's basically every time I've done a presentation, they're going to be here, the code's going to be here, and for instance, the web console, the one that you can drop it anywhere, those different parameters, I just added that right after the keynote because I actually learned that feature a couple of days ago. So again, always something new. And so I added it to the console so you can play with it. So I'm going to push that up to GitHub in a little while. The raffle app, that's actually one of the things that we started doing in our CFUG. We were all in South Florida, and we all kind of dispersed in Florida. So sometimes when we do our raffle, we were no longer in the room and we no longer have the little tickets, so we would use that. Everybody kind of answers a question, gets in there, and then one of us runs the function, and then somebody gets told that they won. Then the first time we used it, it was Alicia was doing a presentation. Of course, it failed miserably. That's the way it works. An advanced socket, I have a website. I still haven't done anything with it. Life is just busy, but it's on GitHub, and the documentation there is as best as possible. But if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to contact me. And you can do that by any of these channels. Don't use LinkedIn, I never check. Thank you very much.